All right, let's do this. Welcome to the ultimate cram session for your CompTIA A+ exam. We're about to absolutely blast through ports and protocols, making sure you lock in all the numbers and ideas you have to know to pass this thing. Let's get right into it. Okay, so ports and protocols, I know, it can feel like you're just trying to memorize the phone book, right? But trust me, we're not going to do that today. We're going to make sense of it all, we'll group them into logical families, and I'll give you some simple tricks to make this stuff actually stick. So before we even touch a single port number, we got to get our heads around the two main ways data travels across the internet. Seriously, think of it like a highway that has two completely different types of lanes. Getting this down is absolutely foundational for the A+ exam. Okay, so here are our two lanes, TCP and UDP. On one side, you have TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol. This one is all about reliability. It's connection-oriented, which is a fancy way of saying it does a three-way handshake. Hello, you there? Yes, I'm here. Okay, here comes the data, before sending anything. It makes sure every single piece arrives in order. Now, on the other side, you've got UDP, the User Datagram Protocol. This one is the speed demon. It's connectionless. It just throws the data out there and hopes for the best. No handshake, no confirmation, just pure speed. You know, the best way to think about it is this. TCP is like making a phone call. You dial the number, you wait for them to say hello, and you confirm you're connected before you start talking. You use this for stuff where you can't lose a single bit of data, like downloading a file or loading a web page. UDP, on the other hand, is like dropping a letter in the mail. You just send it off and you assume it'll get there. It's perfect for things where speed matters way more than 100% reliability, like a quick DNS lookup or streaming a video. All right, let's put this into practice. We're going to start with our first group of protocols. Think of this as the crew that does all the heavy lifting behind the scenes the second you plug your computer in and try to go to a website. So, first things first, your computer needs an address. It basically shouts into the network using DHCP on UDP ports 67 and 68, saying, "Hey, can anybody give me an IP address?" The DHCP server hears that call and tosses one over. Then you type in a website, let's say CompTIA.org. Well, your computer has no idea what that name means, so it uses DNS on port 53 to ask the internet's phone book, "Hey, what's the real number for CompTIA.org?" And it gets the IP address back. And notice, they both use UDP because these actions need to be lightning fast. Now pay attention, because this right here, this is a guaranteed exam question. Once you have that IP address, your browser uses HTTP on TCP port 80 to ask for the website. But here's the catch. HTTP is totally insecure. It's like shouting your credit card number across a crowded room. That's why we have HTTPS on TCP port 443. That S is the magic part. It stands for secure. It uses encryption, called TLS, to create a private, secure tunnel between you and the website. That's what gives you that little padlock icon you always look for. All right, next up, the email trio. Now this is a classic CompTIA trap because you've got one protocol for sending mail, but two totally different options for receiving it. So lean in close for this one. Okay, let's break this down. For sending email, you always use SMTP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Just remember it as sending mail to people. The old port is 25, but the modern, secure version that you should be using is port 587. Now for receiving, you've got two choices. There's POP3 on port 110, which literally pops the mail off the server and downloads it to your one device. Then there's the more modern choice, IMAP on port 143. IMAP syncs your mail with the server, which is why when you read an email on your phone, it shows as read on your laptop too. And of course, they have secure versions. POP3S is 995 and IMAPS is 993. And look, here's the proof right here in a typical email setup screen. See that? The outgoing server is SMTP. The incoming server is either POP3 or IMAP. The exam will absolutely try to trick you here. You do not use SMTP to receive mail. It is for sending and sending only. So we're online, we're checking our email. Now let's talk about actually moving files around. This covers everything from downloading a driver to accessing that shared projects folder at work. These are the real workhorses of any network. So let's meet the granddaddy of them all, FTP, the File Transfer Protocol. This one's pretty unique because it actually uses two TCP ports at the same time. Port 21 is for the control connection, like sending commands, and port 20 is for the actual data transfer. It's been around forever. But here's the question we should always ask with these old protocols, right? Is it secure? And when it comes to FTP, the answer is a big, loud no. It sends everything, including your username and password, in plain text for anyone to see. So for the exam, you have to know the secure options and be really careful here. SFTP is not just FTP with an S tacked on. It's a completely different thing that actually runs inside a secure SSH connection on port 22. FTPS, on the other hand, is FTP, but it's wrapped in that same TLS encryption layer we saw with HTTPS. And then there's the one you probably use every day without knowing it, SMB on port 445. This is what powers all your Windows network drives and shared printers. You might also see its ancient ancestor, NetBIOS, which used ports 137 through 139. And listen up, this is a huge exam tip. Write this one down. They love to put 443 and 445 right next to each other as answer choices, just to mess with you. The numbers are so close. Just burn this into your brain. 443 is for secure websites. That's HTTPS. 445 is for secure file sharing. That's SMB. Do not let them trick you on this one. All right, now we get to the fun stuff. This is the IT Pros Toolkit. This is the crew of protocols that lets you manage servers, configure routers, and help users from anywhere in the world without ever leaving your chair. So here we have a classic battle, old versus new. On one side, you've got Telnet on TCP port 23. It gives you a remote command line, but it's completely insecure, a total relic. On the other side is its modern replacement, SSH, or Secure Shell, on TCP port 22. It does the exact same thing, but it encrypts the entire session from end to end. If you see Telnet as an answer on the exam, the question is probably about why you should disable it and use SSH instead. But hey, what if you need more than just a command line? What if you need to see the user's entire graphical desktop? Well, that's what Microsoft's RDP, the Remote Desktop Protocol, is for. It runs on TCP port 3389 and lets you see and control a Windows computer like you're sitting right there. And just to round this out, while RDP is for controlling a whole computer, if you're managing network devices like switches and routers, you'd use SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol, on ports 161 and 162. Finally, how does a big network keep track of all its users, computers, and printers? Well, it uses a directory service, like Active Directory. And the protocol or the language that we use to talk to that directory is LDAP on TCP port 389. And by now, you know the drill, right? There's the old unsecure version, and then there's the secure version, LDAPS, which encrypts the connection on port 636. Okay, wow, you have just downloaded a ton of information. So let's lock it all in with a super quick lightning round. I'm going to shout out a port number, you shout back the protocol. You ready? Let's go. What is port 22? Port 443. And what is port 25? That's SSH for secure remote access, HTTPS for secure web, and SMTP for sending mail. Yes, you're getting this. Okay, let's flip it around. This is the real test. What protocol securely syncs your email across all your devices? And what protocol lets you see and actually control a Windows desktop from far away? The answers are IMAPS on port 993 and RDP on port 3389. Fantastic work. You have just successfully crammed the most important ports and protocols for your A+ exam. Keep reviewing these groups, remember the why behind each one, and you'll be golden. Now for one last test, what's the one legacy protocol you should always disable if you find it? Go study.